We've gone from a company, we crossed the billion-dollar GAAP revenue market. There is no reason this company should not be 20 times bigger. We both overestimate and underestimate ourselves in private, but the version of Palantir I see is that when we were in Palantir in 2008, we had a half a product held together by people who were willing to live in a skiff. And that product now powers most of the intel services in Europe and stops terror attacks that otherwise would have turned Europe into a different kind of Europe where walking and that would be very, very far outside the norm on the right side. So we fundamentally changed the history of America and Europe by stopping terror attacks. We had a failed product which we overcame. We built mini products that we're aware of, Guy and others, that other people don't know exist, but actually power a lot of the efforts you see in the news. We launched Foundry, which is definitely, inarguably, the most successful product in the world in what we do. By the way, in any other company, it'd be 400 products with 1,000 salespeople on each one. We regalvanized our American image, which I think was suffering under being private for too long. We became not only neutral in America, but exceedingly charismatic. We're the only company that DPO'd with people of its own leadership, people at Palantir, especially new people or people who are younger, which is many people at Palantir, assume that in a normal company, the people run the company, own the company, and are interested in the company working long term. This is mostly not the case. We were able to get into the public markets without selling our souls to the vicious, vacuous, and otherwise idiotic forces of banking, because we're not in the business of sales. We're figuring that out. I'm sure we'll talk about more. We are doing great efforts to figure that out in Europe and in America. Within the context of our Hegelian culture, meaning that we're going to have the contradiction of real service, real product development, real implementation, and sales, not just one or the other. And the thing that I'm most proud of and keeps me most motivated is, Palantir's culture, of course, shifts and changes, but this company is not actually run by any one individual. It's run by our culture, which still attracts among the best people and keeps among the best people in the world. Honestly, for many of us, because we're smart enough and wise enough to know the alternatives suck. But so it's not maybe that we're as good as we want to be, but the alternatives luckily really suck. And enough people have left Palantir so that, one of the frustrations of building the company is people who'd gone to Stanford, my alma mater, and obviously somewhat overrated school for those of us who went to Stanford, but had only been at heaven Stanford and heaven Palantir, and then left for what they thought were greener grasses, often sometimes, but found out that they were not quite as green. But in any case, this culture that we have is something we have to fight for. I believe the way we took the company public in DPO was very protective of that, but obviously there are lots of things to figure out and do better. In a normal company, people have normal roles, and that's part of the reason why it is hard for people who join here who've had lots of other experience to join here. The higher you go at Palantir, and the lower you go at Palantir, I hope, the less defined your role is. And my role, in the way I conceive it, is to help insert qualitative variables that are relevant now, or will be relevant in the future, before they can be codified in an algorithm across the company. So a business does not win where you are just working on things you understand. You have to work on a lot of things that are not understandable. Like, very simply, why was PG better than Metropolis? Because we made a bet that the world would move towards a world where data protection and civil liberties were important. Why did our DPO work? Because we made a bet that this was the right timing. Why? And there's lots of micro decisions across the company. Why do we use this kind of advertising and not that kind of advertising? Why does this kind of person need to get more space to work, or another person needs to be moved around? Why is it that we bet we go long in this jurisdiction and short in another jurisdiction? How do we overcome the resistance of, sometimes well-meaning actors, institutions, and sometimes, quite frankly, the malicious forces of laziness as embodied by the IT departments? How do we get the structure to reflect its culture? And these things end up being a rolling, cascading, chaotic thing that invariably I work on basically all day. So I think when, people work with me, they expect, I don't know why, some kind of very normal meeting structure where we're going to sit down and go from one point to the next, to the next, to the next. I'm not denying that can work, and many of you work in that structured way, and it's clearly productive. But that's not actually how you get what I can help the company with into the company, and not so much at Palantir, but definitely when I see too much of that at other companies, I really wonder, what are they hiding with these long meetings, as opposed to getting to the unvarnished truth? So that's what you have to do to be disruptive. And we should never forget, we are maximalist outsiders. Nobody is ever going to buy our product. No one's going to buy our shares. No one's going to actually show up and stick up for us unless we are unique, differentiated, and the best. And to get that best to work, you've got to get things that don't fit together, like sales and engineering, like two engineers that have very different views. Like even just building a product, you're going to need someone who can conceive of the product. You're going to need someone who can conceive the front end of the product. You need someone who can put the product. Then you need someone who can actually make the product ship. They all dislike each other, as you know from building these things. Or not to the point of dislike, hate, but it's it's very hard. See, the more technical the people are, the more but that's the reason why we're standing here. That's the reason we get away with being unique, because we've actually done this. And every normal company does this a half a time and acquires 20 companies. We've done it at least 5 times, and the iceberg of our product development is not even exposed to the world. They don't even believe we're going to do it. Normal software companies produce once. So normal investors look at Palantir and they see something, no one can do this 5 times. And they're going to wake up to a world that we play a very, very big role in. So if you're going to buy some weak product that barely works that you install, you can't then say, but what happens when the product is 50 times more complex than it is now? And the complexity that we are up against in the world is a complexity that Palantir embraces. This is why we attack and structures. This is why we go after the most talented people. This is why we built the culture, to make sure we keep those people, because we're presupposing a radical increase in complexity, and everyone else is presupposing a Disney fairy tale that I don't think anyone ever even believes anymore. But since it's too dangerous to think of the world the way it is, people run and hide and service their institutions in ways that will not work. And the COVID pandemic is just the first of many waves we're going to see. And Palantir was built for this. And it would be an exaggeration to say the world rests on our shoulders. And it's, by the way, but it is scary to think how much of the world rests on our shoulders. The mission was why we started the company, and it is really crucial. But I would say watching Palantirians suffer through a deployment, for me, the most compelling is the work we've done. Example of this is the work we've done in COVID, especially in the US and Britain. Just it's so motivating, and it makes me want to also do a lot of shit I honestly don't want to do, that I wouldn't do otherwise. I'm always personally surprised, but it's then I think of some Palantirian and all the crap that you're going through. It's certainly more painful than what I'm going through. And then I think, if they can do that, I definitely have to show up and do this meeting that I don't want to do, or fly somewhere. But it's very, very compelling, and I know I'm very, very grateful.